Hi everybody, I'm Ali Kalakoli and this is part 7 of our UML tutorial series, and in this part we want to talk about communication diagrams. So if you're ready, let's get it started. Communication diagrams capture the organization of objects in a system taking part in the message flow. Also shows time sequence of messages by a numbering technique. So actually communication diagrams do all that a sequence diagram does, plus showing the organization of objects. So for your product, you may decide to draw only communication diagram instead of the sequence diagram if uh, showing the organization of objects is more important than the sequence of the message flow. And yeah, on the other hand, if showing the message flow is more important than the organization of the objects, then you might decide to draw the sequence diagram and not the communication diagram. And yeah, if both of them are important, you can draw both communication diagram and sequence diagram. It is all up to you that you can decide which diagrams to draw actually. So here is an example of a communication diagram for the very same teaching process that we have drawn its sequence diagram. Now we're demonstrating it in the communication diagram. And just like the sequence diagram, that's how we show synchronous message and asynchronous message. Reply message is like this, participants are like that, and by links, we're going to show the organization of objects and actually show which object is associated to another one. And by a numbering technique, the message sequence flow is demonstrated. So number one, the learned method is triggered, and after that it causes the number 1.1 to creating the session participant, and that causes the 1.1.1 add learned lesson method to be triggered. And then the message number 2 will be triggered, which is take exercise method. Actually, teacher call the take exercise method of the student participant. And this message call causes the 2.1 message to be triggered, which is practice, and it's a message to self method call. I mean, the student participant calls its own method, which is practice. And then the number 3 will be called review. And then number 4 will be triggered, take exercise, which causes number 4.1 will be triggered, memorize. And after that, number 5 will be triggered, answer questions. And then number 6, results, which is the reply message of the answer questions actually. The teacher participant has called the answer questions method of the student participant, and the student gives the teacher the results to that questions by the results method. And then number 7 will be called, which is the take summary, and that causes 7.1, which is destroying the session participant. And then number 8, take exam, which causes number 8.1, which is destroying the course participant this time. And finally, number 9, which is the exam results. We will explain about all of these later, but first, let me explain for whom a communication diagram is. System designers and developers. Purpose: describe the message flow in the system, structure and organization of the objects, interaction among objects. Important elements: participant, obviously, which is an object most of the times, but they can be any part of our system that is taking part in an interaction, just like the sequence diagram. Points to consider: draw only objects that are taking part in the interaction, just like the sequence diagram. Show the sequence in which the messages are flowing in order by a numbering technique, which I have explained how the numbering technique is, and we'll explain about it more as I go up and go and explain the second communication diagram example that we have. Steps to draw it. Draw the communication diagram. It's actually easy. Start drawing the very first object that is going to start the system, just like how we start a sequence diagram, and all of the other participants after that. The use case main flow helps us in finding where to start and where to go after that, actually. And then draw the links between each of the participants that are taking part in the interaction so that they can communicate with each other. And then we write the messages one by using a numbering technique. So let's go all the way up here and take a look at our second example. So here is a very simple example of a communication diagram that we are going to demonstrate for a process. Two participants are taking part in this process. We have connected them with link and have written the messages that are going to be triggered one after another. First, this message will be triggered, so this is number one, then number two, then number three. And that this is our message signature, actually, that for all of the messages we can actually write details information about them, that we call this message signature. We can write the variable and which is going to store the returned value of the method. Then we will write the method name. If it has any arguments, we will write the arguments with its class type, and then finally we will actually write down the type of the class that the method is going to return. In this example over here, I try to demonstrate nested messages. Nested messages are the messages that are caused and created because of another message. So here, the very first message that is going to be triggered is the number one message A. Actually, participant 1 has called the message A of the participant 2. And this message trigger causes the nested message to be triggered. I mean, message 1.1. Actually, as soon as the message hits a new participant, we will add an additional decimal number to it. And that's what the numbering technique that we use for nested messages. In our example here, as the new nested message hits a new participant, the additional decimal number has been added to it. So it will be 1.1. So, all right, let's continue and see what else do we have. Parallel method execution. If we would have one A and one B, it means that these two messages are going to be invoked concurrently and at the same time. In sequence diagram, we can show parallel with the parallel sequence fragment, as we know. All right, loop execution. Here we actually are saying that message A will be invoked 10 times before the message B can be invoked. So we show it like this. And as we know, loop sequence fragment in the sequence diagram demonstrate the loop execution. Optional execution is like this. If this guard condition evaluates to true, then message A will be triggered. The optional execution will be shown by optional sequence fragment with guard conditions in a sequence diagram. Alright, let's take a look at the alternative execution. As its name implies, only one of these messages must be triggered. And only if their guard condition evaluates to true. It's actually like a if statement in a programming language. Only one if statement can be true. So, and also, yeah, message B could have no guard condition, which in that case, if the message A's guard condition evaluates to false, then message B will be triggered no matter what. So that's all there is to a communication diagram. I hope you enjoyed it. Please follow the tutorial in our next part of the UML tutorial series, and please don't forget to subscribe to be notified of our upcoming tutorials. So see you there.